All
right, so give me a second, see if I got into the conference. And bring up the presentation, here it is. And I will share screen. Welcome, Ernest. It's been a long year, but it's been very fruitful. I appreciate your being here this evening to invite us. Oh, hey, we are up. Lincoln County Homeless Strategic Plan.
I wish I brought enough of these for everybody. So, council, thank you for having me. Mayor, thank you for having me also.
Yes.
It's been nice to see you.
Yes.
So everyone, if everybody has the document up in front of them, the document with the blue page.
Right.
Today I will be talking about our homelessness strategic plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll to page 2, and on page 2 we have the agenda. I'm hoping that we can talk about the process, that we can talk about the mission that has been established, that we can give you some information about the unhoused community here inside of Lincoln County. Want to talk to you about housing, services, and economics, and finally talk about our strategic recommendations. Would that be okay tonight? Is there anything to add or anything to take away? Anything? No? Sound okay? So what I'll do, everybody, is that I will go to slide 4 if you don't mind, because slide 3 is an illustration slide. So we started this work in January. We are working with the Lincoln County Homeless Advisory Board. So that board has a member of every, or has a seat that has a member from every city council and the community services consortium and the county. And we started this work in January, and you can see the phases that we've gone through up to today. As we go to slide 5, we have put together a work group structure, and we've had 4 separate work groups that met 8 times this year each, right? Those work groups covered community engagement, finance and economics, mental and physical health, and service provision and policy. Now I'll go to slide, well, it does have a page number, it's actually slide 7, and that's the mission slide. So in working with the board, we helped the board construct this mission statement. And the mission statement has 2 parts to it. The first part is to ensure that every member of our community has access to the resources they need. And the second part is while also working to prevent circumstances that lead to homelessness. So this is the mission that's been put together, and then later I will talk about the goal that we are recommending for this board. As we move forward, I would like to give you some information about your local unhoused community inside of Lincoln County. So on slide 9, the top line here is that we estimate that there are about 2,000 unhoused individuals throughout Lincoln County. Now, federal data tells us that historically this figure has been between 160 and 180 individuals. And inside of that number, historical data has also told us that inside of that 160 to 180 individuals, 40 to 60 of those individuals are considered to be unsheltered, right? Well, whenever we look at school data alone, so this is Lincoln County School District data. Whenever we look at the school district data alone, it tells us that we have 630 unhoused children. So how can that federal information be correct? So what we did is we gathered a lot of local information in addition to the school district information. We actually surveyed on the ground ourselves. And we came up with 3 different estimation methods that would give us three different estimation figures. When we combine those figures and we take the mean of them, then that figure gives us 2,090 individuals. So there goes our estimate. Right? Now, we can see the standard deviation on that, and it would swing either low or high, 891 individuals. But that being said, it's a lot more than the 160 that we thought. Okay. So that's important for us to know about our county. Now, as we go to on slide 10, like I said, we interviewed a lot of people inside of your unhoused communities. Even here, we went to all of your cities and we met people and we spoke to them face to face. I did also. Okay? I care a lot about this topic, so I actually led the work. So I can tell you a lot of stories. But what we saw was the average age of individuals was 46 years old. Anywhere from 19 to 72 years old are the people who we interviewed. What we learned is, on average, their most recent date of employment has been over 2 years ago, and the most recent date since on permanent housing has been over 3 years ago. So that's what we learned. And then here you can read some of their quotes. Right. Some people, for example, just want a house so they can get their kids back. That's what we learned. As we go to slide 11, I'd also like for us to look at how people have interacted with our service provisions across Lincoln County. So, a little over 68% of individuals are aware of local or support services. About 40% have received housing services, but 48.4% have had difficulty in receiving those services. So this is what we learned. This is what they've told us. Now, on slide 12, we learn about individuals' health status. And what we found is 86.5% of the population suffers from health concerns, whether it's 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 6. There are only 13.5% of them that have no concerns. And as you see, there are 67.6% of the individuals have 3 or more concerns. Now, over on the right, you can see the percentage that has a disability, 52.8%. We can see individuals with mental health conditions or they suffer from disorders. We can see individuals who have had lasting vision issues, lasting dental issues, and these things are quite persistent. So that's what we see. If we go to slide 13, one thing that we wanted to study was, hey, look, how does the educational scenario look? And what we learned is that individuals who reside in our unhoused communities have just as much education as everybody else. That's what we learned. Right? So on average, right, we see that it's comparable. Now, where we see a difference is in graduate degrees. But other than that, the percentages are very uncomparable, are very uncomparable. Okay, so that's a little bit about our local unhoused communities. Now, when we look at the issues that cause houselessness, that cause homelessness, we see them we can see them broken out into 3 dimensions. We see housing, services, and economics. So if it's okay with you, I will be discussing housing first. So on slide 15, we can take a look at our housing supply by zip code. Now, what we see is that there are a lot of single-family units. There are not that many multi-unit residential properties, and there are not that many commercially owned residential properties. But when we look at tax-assessed value, we see that values range anywhere between $180,000 to about $353,000. So that's what our tax assessments say, right? So what we wanted to do is we wanted to ask, hey, look, is this information true? Is this information real? Is this what people are feeling on the ground? So our teams surveyed the information, right? You do what anybody else would do. You would just actually look up the prices. So when you look up the prices starting on slide number 16, you can see that in Lincoln County for a 1-bedroom home, what we found is that those prices were around $500,000, right? So as compared to our neighboring counties, one of the lowest. But then as soon as you go up to 2-bedroom homes, now we are going over 800,000, and as soon as you go to 3-bedroom homes, now you're in the millions. So that's what we saw. Lincoln County quickly goes from being the cheapest to the most expensive whenever we look at our neighboring counties. Now, that is the cost of housing. If it's okay, I would love to talk to you about the affordability of it. So when we go to slide 19, keep in mind, we're just looking at homes on the market that are anywhere from half a million to over $1 million on average. Now, when we look at individuals' income, we can see that the median income is $54,961. And by federal standards, that would only leave $1,374 available for rent. Anybody who is making that cannot afford a $1 million home. So that's what we're seeing here. Now, if we scroll down to slide 20, we see that we have 36.1% of residents earning less than $51,000. So that's less than what we just saw. And of that, 15.2% are estimated to be in poverty. So what we see is from a housing perspective, we see people kind of being pushed into a higher risk category of becoming homeless. That's what we see. Now, finally, on page 21, I would love to talk to you about vacancy rates. So when we look at federal data, the Census Bureau tells us, hey, look, Lincoln County has 41.8% vacant homes. Right? That's what the census data tells us. Well, whenever we examine, hey, look, how are you getting this information? Well, what are they doing? They are sending out letters, and if you don't respond, they consider that home to be vacant. Right? Well, let's think about that. If your home is a short-term rental, or if it's a second home, or you don't live there very often, are you responding to a Census Bureau letter? Are you filling out that form? No, you're not. Right? So this figure gives us some insights into how many second homes we have, how many short-term rentals we have. And whenever we look at these figures historically and we look at the rest of Oregon, we would expect that figure to be anywhere between 5 or 10% whenever we look at the rest of the landscape, right? So you can see on this map how Lincoln County kind of stands out, right? Why? Because it's a hotspot for short-term rentals and secondary homes. Right? So that's what we see on the housing landscape. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk to you about services. So on slide 23, what we did is that we surveyed all of our local service organizations, and we found that there are around 167 service providers inside of Lincoln County. Many of these are nonprofit organizations, faith-based organizations, churches. There are also governments. There are also government departments. There are a lot of different organizations working to support this cause. But when we map them out, and we map out their relationship, and we ask, okay, who is working with whom? How are you working with other organizations? What we see is some fragmentation. So what we see is that one organization, for example, doesn't know another's organization intake criteria. They don't know their capacity. They don't know if they're open. So in my previous city council meeting, someone from law enforcement stood up and they said, anytime we try to help somebody, we pick up the phone and we call people over and over and we can't find anybody to actually help the individual. That was their experience, that was their experience, and that's exactly what we are seeing here. Okay. So when we go to slide 24, whenever we look at all the organizations that we have moving throughout Lincoln County, we can piece together their work. There are some people working on sheltering, there are some people working on emergency housing, some people working on transitional housing, some people working on other services, and when we piece them together, we can put them into 7 categories, right? And these 7 categories line up very, very well to the HUD housing continuum. Right? Now, that housing continuum is on slide 25, and as you see, organizations working on the early side are helping individuals who are houseless. We call that phase 1. And then phase 2, you can see emergency sheltering. Phase 3, you can see transitional housing. Phase 4, you can see supportive, on over to affordable rentals, to affordable home ownership, to market rate rentals and ownership. So if you kind of tie them together, you can begin to see a 7-phase spectrum, right? Of a progression to help an individual to go from unhoused to market rate housing. And it takes a while, but this is how that progression would look. So whenever we organize the service organizations on slide 26, and we look at what organizations are doing, well, you can see right here in all this very tiny font that organizations are doing a lot, but they follow the same structure. So they follow a very similar structure. Now we ask ourselves, hey, what about economic development? What about educational services? What about job services, job matching services? And whenever we look at that on slide 27, we see that it also follows the same progression. So when we layer these on top of each other, we had a eureka moment. We had this moment where we said, hey, there's a model here, right? So on slide 28, we created this progression of support model that helps us to understand the allocation of services, resources, and help that are needed based on an individual's housing situation. So you can see at the bottom how an individual who is in kind of phase 1, which is being unhoused, how the needs are primarily housing support and service of support needs. And then over time, you see how it would progress and how an individual could use economic support. But then by the end of it, what you see is more self-sustainability, right? Now, keep in mind that even when we're in this kind of phase 7 and we have more self-sustainability, there are still needs for our services, right? However, those needs have drastically decreased versus phase 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is what we see on the services side of things. Now, next I would like to talk to you about the economic side. So on slide 30, we would like to talk to you about population trends. So when we look at Lincoln County, what we see is that there is a net negative growth for natural population. What that means is that there are fewer babies being born, right, over time. That's what it means. So, okay, where does growth come from? So as we look at slide 31, what we see domestic migration growth. What that means is people coming from other counties, people coming from other states inside of the United States. But then when we look at international migration, it's pretty steady. So we don't see a lot of growth there. So this is kind of giving us some insights on, hey, look, how is Lincoln County going to grow over time? Right? Well, there are people who want to live in Lincoln County. That's what we see. Now, we were also asked early on, hey, Ernest, can we just build our way out of this, right? Can we just build some houses and just have some houses and just build our way out of it and just call it a day, right? Okay, so then we look at that. So on slide 31, what we did is we modeled your housing supply and demand curves. So what these graphs tell us is that the model price should be $480,000. However, people are paying more than that. People are paying $592,000. That means that they're paying a premium on what the price should be, right? That's what it means. Now, Ernest, how would it look if we just built more houses, right? Okay, so that would be a supply shift. So on slide 33, what we see is that temporarily prices would go down from a model 480,000 to a model 420,000. So as you introduce more supply, that's what would happen, right? Prices would go down. But wait, anytime you change supply, demand also changes, right? So what would happen in the demand response? Well, on slide 34, we see that, yes, we brought the prices down to 420,000, but prices went back up to 540. More than the prices, more than your original prices. That's what we said. Right. So what that tells us is, hey, look, this is a complex issue that we can't only build our way out of it. So building is part of the solution, not all of it, right? That's what this one tells us. Okay. So next, I would like to go to slide 36, if you don't mind. I would just like to summarize very quickly. Slide 36 tells us, hey, look, number one, there are more individuals than we originally thought. There are more unhoused individuals in our counties than we originally thought. Number two, there are differences between income and rent. Basically, places are difficult to afford. When we look at number three, we say, hey, look, we have a lot of work going on. It just needs to be organized, right? We just have to centralize it, organize it, right? On slide 4, we also see, hey, look, so from an economic standpoint, from a services standpoint, and a housing standpoint, there are pressures pushing down on our population that actually pushes people into higher risk categories. So it actually increases risk of poverty over time. That's what this is showing us. And then on slide 5, our economic responses, we not only need short-term responses, we also need long-term responses. So if we want to build, we actually have to think long-term and think about the long-term effects as well as the short-term effects. Right? And finally, number 6, we think that there is a progression that could help individuals reach stability with a comprehensive solution. So this is what we see. Now, what I'll do, just to kind of save time and consolidate this, because I've been working on this for a while, our team has, as Mayor Short knows, I can talk about this all day, so don't give me, hey, Ernest, stop, right? I would like to move down to slide 42, which is our first key recommendation. So slide 42. What we see is, in the past, we have done this work before, we have created plans before, but what we think our first key recommendation is that the group doing this work, we think should be a permanent group, right? We think that this isn't just a touch and go thing. This is a permanent solution thing, right? Where we need to work together and just have new ways of working. So the group that's currently working on this, the Lincoln County Homeless Advisory Board, we think that that board should be permanent and that every city council should have a seat on it. That's what we think. So that's our first key recommendation. If we go to number 2, our second recommendation on slide 43, we think that the primary strategic goal should be to reduce homelessness down to emergency and voluntary levels. Okay? Because there are always going to be emergencies, and some people don't want to live in a home, which is okay, right? However, for individuals who want a home, for individuals who are involuntarily homeless, we want to be able to help them. So we think that that should be the goal, right? And we think that you should use this progression of a support model to understand where people are on their way to achieving self-sustainability. On slide 44, we have a 3-phase approach to change. Number one, we think that you should initiate a navigation center. So a navigation center is a place that has a no wrong door approach, but they are in touch with every service provider. They know what all of the law enforcement officers are doing. They know what the firefighters are doing. They know what everybody's doing. And anytime anybody needs help, you just pick up the phone and then they know exactly where to send people, right? They know who has some capacity, who is open to when. They know everybody's intake forms. They know how to make it happen. Now, we think that you should do this using what we call a no wrong door approach. That means if you come into the system from, let's say, that fire department, provides some assistance, right? That is not a wrong door, right? That the fire department can pick up the phone and just help you get help, just like anybody else can, right? So we call that the no wrong door approach, right? So we think that that's the approach that we should take. Number two, we think that there should be public relationships with key organizations that help to bring in data, organize information across these 4 spectrums: housing, services, economics, and also transportation. So that our board and all of your cities can very easily and quickly see, hey, who needs what help when? What type of resources are needed? And we need to pull that data in and compile it. And then number 3, not every organization can afford to have that level of technology, right? Not every organization even has on computers, right? So with that being said, we think that there should be a way of working where these smaller organizations can work with key organizations, and that the key organizations can help pull in their data so that we can over time gain an entire county-wide view. And that way we can all work together, we can understand who needs to do what, where are the needs. So in future years, we're not developing brand new plans all over again. We have the data already in front of us, and you don't need another guy in the suit coming in here telling you what they saw, right? So we are trying to create and change, right? Now, everything that I just explained can be seen on the following slides. Slide 45 talks about this phase 1 and then how a navigational center would look. Slide 46 talks about these public and partner relationships. And finally, slide 47 talks about the outcomes of having a navigation center and working across these 4 spectrums: housing, services, economic development, and finally transportation. Okay, so I think I took a lot of time. My apologies if it went too long, but thank you. I appreciate it. Feel free to ask me anything.
Thank you, Ernest. That was a wonderful presentation. Second time through, but I was wonderful. I loved it. Is there a strategic plan in place going forward?
Yeah, so we're in the process of writing up the big draft report that the state wants to see, right? We had hoped to have it out early, but unfortunately it's very incomprehensive, and to be honest, one of our lead writer got into damn car accident, so it's taking a little bit longer than we had hoped. That being said, we're in the process of writing a larger comprehensive report that has a lot more detail to everything that I just talked about.
And going forward, then we would be asked as the city participant to pass a resolution then
Yes.
to participate in the strategic plan?
Absolutely.
Okay. I always have to think of economies. The city has no tax base. We have no budgeting for homelessness.
Mhm.
Thank goodness, when I saw a homeless gentleman the other day, I was able to help with services for him. So I was hoping that, going forward, we'll have some budgeting part of the strategic plan. Would that be part of it?
Yeah, so what we've done is, inside of our large report, we have broken down what we think costs would be, right? However, what we did is we looked at every municipality's budget. So we've already examined your budget, we've already examined the other city's budget, we've examined the county budget. And what we see is that for some of our smaller municipalities, to afford that would be very difficult, right? So what our hope is that through a collaboration, you can kind of look at, or that the board can work together across all of the municipalities and then figure out how to pay for it. We don't want to tell you, hey, look, you need to come up with this, or we don't want to tell you, hey, look, you need to take away from this line item in order to do that, right? Our job is to say, well, hey, look, this is, what we think you should do, this is how much we think it'll cost, and we've kind of done soft assessments, but we've kind of refrained from, saying, hey, look, you need to take from this program in order to do that. So we kind of avoided that a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Ernest this evening? Yes.
Thank you for the presentation, it's very informative. So what was the barrier to the sheriff or police being able to get help for a homeless individual? That nobody picked up phones, they didn't have the services that were needed, or what was, do you have any details?
So he said that it was a common problem. And he said what law enforcement does is that they pick up the phone and they, start Googling, or they start searching for a shelter, and they just pick up the phone and they try to figure out who is doing what at what moment. So they're trying to quickly figure it out based on, what they're able to search. That's what I heard last week. We've also heard the same thing in our research. We call almost every law enforcement department across the county. We call firefighters. We call quite a few organizations. And what we heard more often than not is we don't have a policy around that. We don't know what to do.
Are your churches being set up to house these people?
So your faith communities are bridging a lot of the gap. So they are bridging a lot of gap. Because of them, we knew where to go in order to interview people. So we came to food pantries and we came to soup kitchens that they were holding, and there were lots of people there. So yeah, they are covering those people.
Yes, Councilor.
Thank you, Mayor. It's Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Councilor Beasley. I really appreciate you coming in tonight. Excellent report. And you can't move forward without information like that. A couple of things that caught my ear. One is you said some people don't want to live in a home, and that's okay. And I would have to respectfully take issue with that comment, because I don't think it is okay for people to live unhoused unless they're living on their own property. And if they want to just live on their own property with no house, and zoning allows them to do that, I guess that's okay. But otherwise, it's a real problem for people who, I think it's a mental issue, and it's probably, because I've talked to homeless people, I've done stories on them, I have a journalism background. And so anyway, one component that I don't see in here that's talked at all is a reference to law enforcement, and what law enforcement can do in terms of the homeless problem, because I think you have to, along with offering a carrot, a stick, you just almost have to do that. You call this a hotspot for vacation rentals and second homes, and you're absolutely right about that. And I am concerned about the demonization of second homes and STRs. Socializing our housing supply is not going to solve this problem. The death of baby boomers might help out a little bit. We're all on the fast track to that. But this is our economy over here. People who think that the economy has changed to a retirement economy, well, that in one sense is true. Retirement is now the biggest industry over here, but tourism remains second, and without it, we don't have our well, you can imagine. And finally, when you said that we have 630 unhoused children, that is just an astonishing figure. And it makes me wonder, because there was a discussion about this at one point on the metrics that the school district uses. For example, a child that lives in a trailer with their parents is considered unhoused if that trailer is in an RV park. Is that correct?
So what the data is called is it's called nighttime residency and data, right? And the data falls into 4 categories. It's either sheltered, unsheltered. I forget what the other is, but the one that's a little the one that there's a lot of discussion about is the category that's called doubled up. Right? Doubled up generally means that you are sleeping on somebody else's couch, or you're temporarily borrowing somebody else's home. And then one of those individuals, or sometimes both of those individuals can be, can enter into the school data, whereas they would not enter into a federal data. So that's where we see that area. It's called double up.
But they're not living in a tent. They're actually having a roof over their heads.
Yeah, they could be sleeping on somebody else's couch.
Okay.
And that's kind
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Mr. Stevens? Thank you so much. And thank you for all the hard work, and we'll keep us surprised.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you.
Moving on our agenda, we have reports from our committees, emergency.
We have a meeting on the 13th. Writing going to be for radio training. Are we still on target for that?
Yes.
Okay. So 4:30?
4:30.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Alrighty. Houseless Advisory Committee, we have our public hearing needed to reschedule that. We need to do that, yeah, okay. We're still working on a houseless ordinance. Harper,
Yeah,
come on up.
so yeah, we had a pretty productive meeting, the 25th, I think it was, of October. And we basically approved everybody paying $10 worth of motorized or unmotorized for launch. I think that's already pretty much in the plans and everything. We also addressed the issue of some of the board spots to government agencies. We kind of think that they're kind of a feather in our cap, for the ODF&W, the Coast Guard and all. I think we should probably give them a little bit of a reduced rate for we thought that it would probably be appropriate to give them a little bit of a reduced rate when they do need mortgage. It's pretty much usually a temporary deal when they do need the mortgage. And, we addressed, the shortfallings in the harbor a little bit. We didn't, really have a profit and loss, of course, because we can't produce one yet with our current software programs. So we kind of delved into that a little bit. It kind of appeared like total expenditures are like $400,000, rather than the harbor losing $400,000. But, from everything that we could tell, from the information we did get. And other than that, that was about it. Other than there's already something on the agenda that we're gonna be addressing tonight also, so.
Okay, any questions about the harbor? Thank you, Todd.
You bet.
Appreciate your coming this evening.
Thank you.
Planning, we have a report. Is there any other questions on planning? Good night, gentlemen. Thank you for coming. Safe travels. Judy, did you have any additional that you wanted to report on this evening?
Well, just one thing.
Okay.
The planning commission, identified, in its joint meeting with the chamber, with the city council earlier this year, that we were going to work on quality of life amendments, and we have been doing that. And we have, done work on noise and light, in particular. And we had identified trees as one of the items that we would take on, and I know it's on your agenda for later, and I just wanted to let you know that the planning commission is here to support you on a tree ordinance if you want to move forward on that.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, Parks, anybody from Parks this evening? And I don't see anybody in Salmon and Hazard. Anybody from Salmon? No reports there? Okay. Any public comments this evening? No public comments? Okay. There are no unfinished business. Alrighty, Special Olympics. Here we go. Donna, do you want to come on up?
Yeah, I also got a couple of our athletes that are with us. They were involved in the leadership program
Yes, hi.
statewide. This is Annabeth Bassenhoff and this is Mike Ferguson.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming this evening.
And thank you for having us. So do you guys want to talk about what your guys' role is in the leadership program so they can understand why you guys are here?
So we, in the leadership, we're a voice for all people with disabilities. So we get to be a voice for everybody with disabilities.
We are doing 4 climbs for raising stress on the Olympics.
Thank you, ladies.
So you want to talk about our forward plunge for 2024?
Is that microphone?
And maybe Okay, so we want to do a pole plunge for 2024, so 2024. And the date that we want to do it is on March 23rd. And it's going to be at 10 a.m. or we want to do it at 10 a.m. And we want to do it at high tide. Last year we did it at low tide. And it's high tide time is 12:38 p.m. And we want the Coast Guard to be closer than what they were last year.
Because they said so low in the water, they weren't able to get up close.
Correct.
And then another thing that we noticed last year too, with it being at the lower tide, they're walking into the water that's constantly underwater.
Really slippery.
Yeah, so that's a concern that we have for next year.
We want to keep everything the same as it was last year, except for it being at high tide. We will advertise more this year. We want to advertise on the radio, the newspaper, social media, Facebook,
Instagram and there's city's website and hang, we wanna go to, the city's website and also we wanna hang flyers around town from, Lincoln City, to Newport.
We're gonna try and grow it this year.
Yeah, we want to grow it this year, we want, yeah.
Well, last year was the first year, so
Yeah.
it was very successful, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And we do wanna find ways that we can get Depoe-based, community involved, like the restaurants, little shops, whatever. If we go, we try to do the grab bag, the goodie bags handing out again, you know, maybe go around and see if some of the local shops wanna put in like a discount, like if you plunged, you get 10% off your, you know, purchase or whatever. So that way it gets people that are at the plunge into the shops that normally wouldn't be seeing traffic that time of the year. And then, you know, whatever else anybody has any ideas on how, if they would even be interested in being involved in that kind of thing.
Yeah, we wanna help spread the word more about the boat launch also being closed too. We will have a food truck, Grubs on Wheels have already said yes to being there, they were there last year. And yeah, they wanna be there this year.
We're only looking at one food truck right now,
Yeah.
because if, you know, depending on how much we grow, if we grow this a lot more, then we definitely wanna bring in a second food truck. But if it's not gonna be, if we're not gonna have that many people there, and it, you know, only grows a little bit from what we had last year, we don't want to competing against each other with such a low volume of the crowd turnout. So we can revisit asking another food truck to come in, if you guys are okay with that at a later time, if we notice that it's needed.
And we wanna also hang up banners at both the north and the south ends of town.
On the day of the event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll have the banners professionally made. I think that pretty much covers it. Obviously, our setup would be a little bit different if we're doing it at high tide, we're gonna wanna move the tent, the changing tent back, and then the registration back as well.
So I think one of the docks, don't we wanna just have like that be for photographers? and
Yeah, so
for-
the new docks that are in, we would, have that not accessible to the public other than our safety crew that are gonna be down on the docks with the light rings or whatever flotation devices that they wanna have out there just for safety. And then, with the approval of you guys, obviously, we would just open it up to people for pictures. And then immediately after they get done taking pictures of the plunges, then they would leave the docks. Cause I don't want to have like.
You're talking about the dogs at the boat launch.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Fish Guys, Booner and Ted, is there any trailer centers out there that can March 23rd, and is anything going on in the parking lot there?
Yeah, it depends on the
Depends
weather.
on the weather.
Yeah, that's kind of the start of spring break.
Okay.
We had a meeting with Special Olympics and
Oh.
our harbor master was there and
All right.
he thought that we were getting awfully close
Oh,
to
yeah.
that being a problem, but it was still far enough away that he didn't foresee that as.
The problem with finding the date is finding the date that has the tide where we can actually have it accessible at a good time. Most of the tides that we were looking at were like either really, really early in the morning or way late at night. And so that was another battle that we came across when we were looking for a date.
Yeah, I just looked up the tides and it's 12:01 is high tide.
Yeah, oh, is it at 12:01? Okay, we had it at 12:38, so,
Yeah, that's,
and is it
Pretty good
7.7?
yep,
Okay.
yep.
Nice. Are there any questions for the ladies?
Can we charge a $10 person lunch?
As long as it goes to Special Olympics, you can. I thought that was only for motorized.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve that request.
Okay, I submitted. Is there a second to the motion? It's been moved and seconded to accept the application for the polar plunge to be held on March 23rd, 2024. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Question, how long, what are the hours, range on this? Because we're not shutting down the ramp all day long, right?
No. We were out there by noon yet, the last time.
Yeah, and we were down there, we got down there around 8 o'clock in the morning. Of course, the tent was set up the night before. We got down there around 8 o'clock just because, it was our first event, so we really didn't know exactly where we were gonna place everything. So we've got a better idea on that this year. But we were figuring being down there around 10 o'clock to get down there to set up. And if we plan on the plunge starting around that 12 o'clock time, depending on how many we get, we figured we could be in and out between 2 and 3 o'clock, everybody going through, and that's carry on as well. So I've got it listed from 10 to 2 is what I have it listed for. And then, just as a side note also, last year we did raise over $5,000 off of that plunge, even though we only had 44 plungers.
Let's see, local.
So on the permit, it says 8 to 2, should we change that for to 10 to 2?
Yeah, you need to set up, right? Is that why you put it down at 8?
If they're not gonna plunge until 12 with the high tide.
That's up to you, you put down 8 o'clock on your
So
application.
can we stick with 8 just in case? Because if we end up having, if it ends up being a bigger plunge, we definitely wanna be able to kind of prepare for more people.
So that, so you'd be setting up tents, but so if people go out, they usually go out early, on boats, so.
We can't have them going out at all because the people have to have a place to park.
Okay.
For the plunge.
Sure.
So fishing's gonna be closed that night. And all proceeds donated to.
So there's a motion on the table.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
And just so that you guys know too, the way that we're doing it, I'm sorry, before you guys finish, all of the money that we raised is local, it stays local. So every bit that we raised last year doesn't go anywhere else but for our athletes in Lincoln County. And that's where we're gearing for to go this year too, because it's plunging under one team, which is the Lincoln County team. We can keep it that way. If we bring in other teams, like say you guys wanted to put together a team, you guys are more than welcome to do so and put together your own team and raise your own funds off of that team. But that money, once it becomes a team, that money does not stay local. It all goes up to the state.
Oh,
Yeah, so we did keep it 100% under Lincoln County's team last year, and we do plan on doing it again this year. But, like I said, we won't turn anybody away that wants to come in.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Alrighty, you're good to go, and thank you so much for your presentation, ladies.
Thank you so much for your time.
Alrighty. Okay, next on the agenda is, we have a application for the, the Harbor Commission recommendation on unreserved mortgage. Has everyone had a chance to read Kim's synopsis of all of this?
And we have members of the Harbor Commission here,
Okay.
as well as Mr. Thompson, if you would like to hear from them before deciding.
Okay. Would anyone like to come up and speak on this?
I was hoping, Kim, you could just give us a rundown. I did read this, just to explain it to us one more time exactly what happened.
Claudia's best to understand because she was the one involved in this, and she's here, so what I will basically say, and she's online, I don't know if she's actually paying attention right now, because she's at home, probably in her jammies, but anyway, so when the Harbor Commission did their ordinance update, they decided that they didn't think that we needed the unreserved mortgage anymore, and there's 2 people on unreserved mortgage, Mr. Thompson and Cody. I don't know his last name.
That doesn't have a vote.
Another one, I guess it was an unintended consequence of them removing that, which is something that, Jack had written in his recommendation that he could go forward and explain. But what happened is, we did the research, or part of the research looking forward to find out if he'd ever actually been assigned a slip, because that was discussed, we said, well, I've been assigned a slip
slip, he always thought he was paying the reserve, thought he had a slip. But she went back all through the records and couldn't find anything that ever said that he was given a slip. He's had the same slip for ever, I mean, I don't know about ever, but for a very, very long time. But the city staff, we had no official records that he was assigned a slip. He could probably give you more about whether or not he's had previous conversations with the harbor master or anything like that. But when I did this, we just provided that he'd been billed at the unreserved, but when he found out that he was moved off of that, he came in and said, hey, I thought I had an assigned slip, and I thought I'd been paying reserve mortgage, so that's essentially what that happened, is there, we don't have anything that says, but there's some communication, so.
So has he been paying or?
Oh, he's been paying just fine, there hasn't been any issues with that. We thought bringing it to the council because of the old language that basically said that you guys have to make the call on these things here.
I don't know if you guys need to talk about that anymore, but I'm okay with having, I actually watched the Harvard meeting and read all the material and listened to Mr. Thompson, and I'm ready to make a motion just to approve it. Unless we make a motion, give a second, and then have discussion?
Yeah, that's fine.
So I motion to approve the Harbor Commission's recommendation to grandfather Terry Thompson as an annual mortgage holder and assign a slip and charge him at the annual commercial charter rate.
I'll second that. Discussion, please. It's been moved and seconded to accept the Harbor Commission's suggestion. Yes.
So I don't understand this well enough. So there is no budget impact? Did he charge the same amount?
Right, it's not adding or reducing it. I mean, if he's charged, if he goes on the monthly or the wait list, there's that impact there, but if you leave him as he is, it doesn't affect anything. Well, that's not true, because he said he would be paying a commercial rate.
I volunteer to pay the commercial rate.
Yeah, he volunteered
To pay
to
more.
the commercial rate.
And so it'd be paying more.
Can I clarify one thing?
Cody, Carla is available if you want to get.
The unreserved mortgage rate is the same as the reserved mortgage rate.
Thank
So
you. They
the
just
pay
didn't
is
have
the
it
same,
slip.
the same amount.
So it's just having a reserved slip.
It's calling it his slip, that he's been in for years.
Yeah.
If you don't approve this, then he either has to go on the wait list or he has to pay the,
Transit.
thank you, the transit, which is, I believe, higher. Carla? Carla?
Yes?
Okay, would you explain to Councilor Rick, because you'll do it better than me, about what happens, what the impact would be, like what it would be end up paying?
Yeah, so as an annual unreserved mortgage holder, the advantage of that is that it gave folks the opportunity to get the same rate as an annual mortgage holder. What the definition of an annual unreserved mortgage holder was that they wouldn't necessarily have they'd be undesignated. So basically it was like a space availability. It's like being a transient mortgage holder, but getting the benefit of the annual mortgage rate. So yeah, as far as making that transition based on Terry Thompson's assumption that he was assigned an annual mortgage slip, it would be the same rate.
So, I'm sorry, another follow-up? Yes, please. So there's one other person. It's almost like we'd have to treat the other person the same as this person, I take it. And then there would be this would be grandfathered in, there's no future reserved mortgage holders.
Unreserved.
And Carla put in the other gentleman's name is Cody Chase, and I believe we haven't heard from him and he hasn't renewed, is that correct, Carla?
That is correct. He has been notified that we're no longer offering that unreserved annual mortgage, but he has not responded to that.
Question.
Yeah.
What is the transient rate versus the annual rate?
It's the same. Oh, the transient, I'm sorry.
Depends on.
About triple.
Depends on how many days you're there.
Well, what about for this?
If you were to stay in the whole year, it would be about triple what the annual rate is.
Thank you.
Could I make one comment on this before you make a
No,
decision?
please come up, Terry.
There is an unusual situation here that hasn't been discussed. That's that when Cody was the harbor master here, he's the one who, I went down and talked to him, because we both thought I had it, and didn't know the paperwork hadn't been done, but they had offered me a stall over on Port Dock 4 one time. And I went over and tied there. It was about the same time Samson broke loose and went on the dock. It's a bad spot in there. And I come earlier than most boats, and I leave a little later than most boats this year. I left a little early, just to stay a little longer. But I was offered to stall. I'd been on the wait list. I'd been put in that and then offered to stall. And I said, well, why don't you guys just, I'll go back and take my own stall back, because I fit better and it was better positioned in the bay, because it is a bad harbor to spend the night for a small boat. And he said, sure. I thought the paperwork was done up in the office. Apparently it had never been done, but I had a stall assigned to me, but I went back to my original stall and everybody just thought everything was normal until this popped up.
Thank you for that.
And you like where you're at?
Well, I wish you'd make it a little flatter in there, winter.
Well, there's, you don't wanna be on 4, closer to the fish cleaning station and.
It would be nice, but the pilings are bad there and you have such tremendous surge off that ramp when you get into about a 12-foot speed. It's, really kicks you around the light boat. You'll notice none of the small boats are left in here now. I think there's only 2 left that are gonna try to spend through the winter. I tried it one winter. I had to leave. It just is too hard on a smaller boat. So it's basically 6 months. Morning for most people anyway. And I volunteered to take a commercial fee, even though technically I think I probably don't have to, because all I do is transport the fish through Depoe Bay. It's all sold in Newport, but we're willing to pay the same as the charter boat. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion on the motion?
Mayor, I would like to say something on this. And thank you for that figure, Kat, I appreciate that. And I'm all for passing this on to making this agreeable to Commissioner Thompson, because he's really our last link to commercial fishing in this harbor, and I appreciate the job he does. The problem is not moorage class here, but the cost of moorage. This is a photo of our harbor.
We're not gonna go into this.
So it's just a busy harbor and we
Right.
need to get our rates up.
Right, that's not part of the motion tonight. Motion is to grandfather in the space for Mr. Thompson. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we've got that taken care of. Suzanne, would you come on up finally? This is Suzanne Sharp, and she wants to be part of our Parks Commission. Thank you for stepping up here and being here this evening. Hopefully you're finding everything very entertaining. You're learning about the city of Depoe Bay a little bit of what all goes on here. So, we read your application and everything. And I'll open up the floor for the questions, and if you had any brief explanation of why you're wanting to volunteer.
I've lived in Depoe Bay for 3 years and it wasn't really nothing about it.
I just put it in the shredder.
So I was looking at ways to volunteer and then I saw online.
Okay, so, we're gonna talk later, I think, about a project that the Parks Commission might be working on, which includes some inventory and inspection. Do you like spreadsheets? Yeah, because I can see how someone with her skills might be very helpful. So, anyway, there's some fun projects coming up on the Parks Commission, so.
Yes, I used to teach it.
Oh, excellent. So we'll teaching lesson here. Yes,
Yeah, I'm just curious, you've been here for a while and you knew nothing about the city. Did you look at the city's website, or how could we make information for the city more transparent to people?
I did look at the website, that I don't know any people, and that was what I felt like was missing.
I'm sorry, you
I
don't know?
don't know any people in town. I know a few people in Newport, but, I go there for most of my errands, and I thought, geez, I live here.
Thank you. I have a question. What neighborhood do you live in? Just curious.
I live right across from the entrance to South Point,
Okay, all right.
just down the road.
Well, hope we get to know you better.
yeah, well, we've got lots of opportunities, so.
Saw that.
For many, yeah.
Where did you move from?
I was in Southern Oregon a little while, but I was in Las Vegas. Big change.
Any other questions for Suzanne? Okay, Sam, we have to do a ballot for this, Suzanne, so just take us a few seconds here while we fill out our ballots.
Am I supposed to sign in this paper?
If you don't know. Are we supposed to have 2 ballots?
Just the other one, yeah, I wasn't thinking, I was so excited about her volunteering for 2 committees that I didn't think about the fact that the urban renewal has to be decided by the urban renewal.
Oh, okay.
So you can cross that off of yours.
What's the topic that you mentioned on the agenda tonight?
Recreational music, yes, recreational music. It's on number 9, it's for the very end of the meeting.
I can't say so.
We'll talk.
Okay.
So the ballots were unanimous. Is there a motion to accept the ballots as presented? Okay, been moved and seconded around here. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, welcome aboard.
Thank you. And the chair is very happy, the Parks Commission chair is very happy. Our next meeting will be on the 22nd, and I will let you know. And send you everything you need to.
Okay.
Thank you for stepping up, Susan. We've got a first reading of the Planning Commission ordinance, or amendment, ordinance number 343-23. Has everyone had a chance to read the, what we need to do this evening? We need to, is there a motion to accept reading the, ordinance title only? Thank you. Second. It's been moved and seconded to read do the first reading by title only of the ordinance. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So this basically.
Pardon me, Counselor Beasley, did you say aye?
I did say aye.
Yeah. It's relating to the Depoe Bay Planning Commission and basically just adds the provision under section 1, allowing alternative.
And reducing the number of,
Right.
members.
Yeah, yes. Is there any discussion on this?
I thought we voted on it.
That was the motion to read by title only.
Okay, thank you.
For this discussion, the ordinance.
Right, but we're not approving the ordinance.
No, not tonight. This is just, okay, just going forward. Okay, so do we need to take action, Kim?
Not tonight.
Okay, so
So
it's
this
just,
would be the time if there's any changes you need to make on this based on,
oh, okay.
it's had already come up during a other meeting where, Sheriff also provided the recommendation. So this is just simply moving forward with the recommendation. I do wanna let you know that at the December 5th meeting, we will be bringing forward the, names for you to appoint the 2 alternates once this gets approved, because 2 people will be going off of the commission, and City Planner Fox is online if you wanna hear from him about this, but we wanna make sure he's not concerned whether or not he will be able to do any planning matters in January. So that's why, and he just went unmuted if anybody has any questions about this for him. There he is.
Any questions for Kit? Hi, Kit. Thank you for being here this evening. Any questions, Suki? I guess not. I guess we've covered everything, so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Okay, so moving on then, the tree ordinance discussion, and everybody's had a chance to read about what Kim has come up with and all the hard work that's going into putting together a tree ordinance here.
Well, I would disagree with that characterization. At least myself, having read this material, I found this packet to be very, very thick. And I haven't had a chance to really get into it, but I hang with the conversation as best possible.
I just brought it because we've had counselors ask about it, and I presented to the planning commission, and I presented the HPAC, which I gave you my memo on that. You know, we're more than willing to proceed forward with this, but it would have to be with the understanding that if the HPAC's advisory recommendations to the legislature and to the governor approved, we may have to throw it all away anyway. But there's no reason, I mean, we can go ahead and go forward with it and start enforcing it now. Just with the houseless crisis, they're doing things to reduce the city's ability to make land buildable, essentially, which is also following up with that HPAC recommendation that I shared tonight for stormwater and the wetland buffers. So these are all things that they're doing. So cities, we can continue forward. It may not be approved and it may not be put into law until into early 2024. We just don't know. But I just wanted you to be aware of the HPAC recommendations, and I told the planning commission the same thing.
Questions? Yes, Fran.
So, I heard tonight, from the planning commission chair that the planning commission is willing to take it on, and it looks like Kim has provided some information, and I would guess I would make a motion that, we ask, the planning commission to move forward with a tree protection ordinance to draft up a tree protection ordinance, for city council, review and approval.
Was that, who was that second? Was that you?
That's me. Sorry for listening.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to ask our planning commission to move forward with a tree, ordinance. What are we calling it? Tree adoption? I don't.
Tree protection ordinance?
Tree protection ordinance. Is there discussion on the motion? Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, first of all, we just heard from our city recorder that this whole thing is up in the air. So for us to lay this in the lap of the planning commission, directing them to do a bunch of work that may or may not coincide with what the state is going to rule on, seems to me way premature. You know, I would hope one of the things that would come out of this would be a model ordinance so that we don't have to do all of this work ourselves. We have few resources. Our staff is stretched to the limit. Our planning commission is also dealing with a lot of issues. And we haven't really had a discussion ourselves to say to the planning commission, go do an ordinance. Well, it seems to me we ought to frame it a little bit on what kind of an ordinance we want. It has been framed to a point, a tree protection ordinance, but, and I've heard in a previous discussion, our city recorder say she's looked at the Lincoln City ordinance, which weighs in at 6,352 words. And in terms of a tree protection ordinance, I was walking in one of the neighborhoods this weekend down on South Point and saw where a tree had fallen on one property, had fallen across the property of another and destroyed the fence and et cetera, et cetera. And that's one of the concerns that I'm frankly worried about, Commissioner, since apparently this is about giving you some guidelines. There was a young 8-year-old girl just a couple of years ago that was killed up in Otis when her name was Zaylee Schlecht, this little 8-year-old darling right here, died when a tree fell through her bedroom. About 100 people a year across the United States die because trees fall on them. And, you know, subsequent to that little girl getting killed, I remember somebody getting killed on Highway 20 when a tree fell. The husband of a Portland, Oregon woman killed when a tree slammed into their house in 2015.
So what does this have to do with the ordinance?
What does it have to do with the ordinance? Well, one thing is that it shouldn't be just about tree protection. It should be about people protection from trees as well as for trees.
We're talking about the planning commission looking into all of this.
Well, I just don't want to see an ordinance that makes it so difficult to cut a tree down that we can't get rid of unsafe trees.
This is just an investigation and starting.
There's a motion on the floor and I'm discussing it.
Okay.
Can I have a question? We don't want to put in the extra work on your staff. Do you think that this is going to be a real burden on you to work on this and move this forward?
I've actually drafted a pretty detailed one based on my experiences, and it would be working with the planning commission and getting their input. We also need to work, the city planner had, we want to kind of link the land use code, because this would be a part of the municipal code, not the land use code, but we were looking at maybe we'll have to do some work to link, to make sure they complement each other. And then we need to talk about the land use code with the pre-development activity in light of that tree being cut down with the roots. So it's working with them, getting some guidance from them and finalizing, but it's a good start.
It's a place
And I
to
think
start.
it meets generally what I've heard from the council and what my experiences were in Millersburg about what they wanted to protect
Yeah, and I just
and cut.
I just wanted to point out that we've been talking about it for a long time. The planning commission's been talking about quality of life. We've been talking about a tree ordinance. Judy from planning already said that, something that they wanted to investigate, so I don't think it's anything we should, hold back on. I think we should get going on it.
So let me ask this question of the recorder, if I could. Is there a difference between what Councilor Rex proposing, a tree protection ordinance and a dangerous tree ordinance? Are those different ordinances, or in a tree ordinance, are they all considered, you know, does your tree ordinance cover dangerous trees as well?
It does. The tree ordinance would specifically talk about what conditions you can remove a tree. And what conditions the tree, like, and what makes you say a tree has to come, which means like you have to get an arborist to certify that a tree is diseased or whatever. So they would actually have to apply for a permit. It's the only way that we would be able to manage what's going on and say, we wanna cut this tree down. Here's why we wanna cut it down. It's sickly, it's dangerous. And then it would be whether or not it gets approved, but it would have to be based on our criteria. So in Millersburg, they have these things called heritage trees, and certain trees over a certain circumference could not be cut down. Small trees, you know, like this, could be cut down, but it's the big ones that was about protecting that. But if a tree is deemed dangerous, then it would have to be certified as being dangerous, and then it would be cut down. Allowed to be cut down, if it's over a certain circumference.
But that's all part of the ordinance.
So it would address dangerous trees.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Got a memo from,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, that was an aye, not a nay. I am for the ordinance. Thank you. Sorry, that, good
You
point.
know, I was thinking, never mind. Thank you, Counselor, because I was like, oh, I heard that wrong.
okay, so the safety incentive program, needs a resolution. Has everyone had a chance to read the description and what's going on? Is there a motion to approve the resolution as presented?
This had already come up, I was gonna say, this had already come up during a work session when the council said to move forward with this, they were in support of it, so we just got a safety bonus requirement, I can't remember how much it was, because our experience rating was low again. So it's nice that SAFE does this. I've not been in a city where SAFE has done this before, we've had this kind of bonus, so.
So I'll make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to improve the safety incentive program resolution 544-23 as presented. Is there discussion on the motion?
Discussion. Go ahead, Council.
Yeah, what type of money are we talking about?
This the one last year was about 2,300. This one this year, I think is pretty close to the same one.
And that's divided up among.
Right,
different
it's, there's, I think it says in the ordinance how the calculation, it's not the full amount, but kind of look at the calculation and then the spreadsheet.
But it deals with.
To all employees.
So it's very little, so
Yeah.
what I was concerned about willingness to report, that doesn't seem to be a big enough incentive to deter people from reporting.
I don't think so, Brady. You don't think there seems to be an issue with our guys reporting any kind of hazards or safety issues or we've had all kinds of things.
No.
Nothing serious, thank goodness, but
Thank you.
we're not really shying away from that stuff. Which is good. I like that they are.
They communicate.
But they try to catch things before they happen.
Mayor, the only thing I think about this right now is that in light of the pay increases that we are looking at, I think we should completely eliminate these types of bonuses and special payments, which I frankly think have been used as a song to sort of acknowledge the lower than normal salaries that we pay. So I think it's time to get rid of this and to adopt a new salary plan.
Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Okay, signs in the harbor. This was a good one, wasn't it?
City planner Fox is on here. Do you want to have him brief that and why this is before you? Unless you are good to go?
I'm good to go.
I'm good to go.
I'm good to go.
Okay. So I think what we're looking for. Okay, we're looking to approve the replacement signs at the location. We need a motion to approve replacement signs at the location proposed.
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved to approve the signs as noted in Kit's report here. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I'd just like to say that I find that this language to be very subjective when it talks about exceptional aesthetic resources and how these signs, cannot in any way ruin the view. What is it? No sign shall detract from and or block any area of scenic value as inventoried in the comprehensive plan. That harbor is an industrial area. There are a lot of eyesores in there that are not signs. And just recently have seen how this sign ordinance in the harbor has been used to block commercial operators from putting up signage. And I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll get the new signs up here. Recreational, challenge and city response. I'm sorry, this is
That's what I've been saying,
ridiculous.
that's what I've been saying since I read this, so I was like, if it helps you all, next week, there's the coastal city managers meeting, and it's in Newport, and I've asked their city manager if we could have a discussion about this, and, what other cities are thinking about, what they might be looking at doing. He said he can talk about, he can't talk about the case obviously, because it's still undergoing, but he can definitely talk about, and he's willing to share what Newport is considering. Because I have some serious concerns, Parks has some serious concerns about what this would mean for us, even starting with the big bridge, the footbridge across the, so.
The creek.
I did ask CIS to, the representative for this to be here tonight, but she was unable to because she's in a conference. But if you have questions and you either want to ask them tonight and I don't have an answer, I can get back to her or have her here another night.
Mayor Short, I would suggest that the city recorder contact David Gomberg and Vic Anderson right away and see if we can, because obviously the solution to this is legislatively. That it says so right there in this report. They need to write the law that fixes this.
Well, right now, the law is that we should be closing our parks access.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a solution. I think this solution is to post signs, and I'm glad parks will be doing an inventory about access routes to the park and through the park. So the bridge, for example, or the access ways to North and South Point, other places. I think we may have to invest in, I would suggest very cheap signs, like poster board or something. And use the language that, I don't remember what page it's on, just that this park is open to recreational use only. Or this access point is open to recreational use only, whatever the wording was. And just post it, so if anybody is walking, sitting, walking dogs or whatever through that area, they are using it for recreational purposes and closed to all other non-recreational uses. And just go ahead and post them everywhere.
I don't know that would that resolve all of that?
Nothing ever fully resolves anybody's ability to sue somebody, nothing ever does that, and we would still have to go to court about it, but it does reduce our risk a little bit. As to, CIS was the one who recommended those signs, I believe, so, I think they're saying that's a good start to make sure that, but nobody can promise we'll never be sued. We may never be sued, it may not be an issue here, people think. I mean, for sure, I'm glad it happened now versus during the height of the tourist season. But then again, we have the other additional concerns of wet things and icy things. We had a person who slipped and fell on the bridge last year. Nothing came of it, but it is a risk, so.
Can you post a sign that says use trail at your own risk, even if they can't?
I'm trying to remember if that was actually one of the suggested signs. Again, I think that would not hurt things, but it wouldn't prevent us from.
I like Councilor Rex's idea of signage. Do we need to make a motion on it?
No, what I'm just looking for is council direction, for number one, we can do, this is all of the different signage just here. That sample that we could use on page 146, and what did the council think about having the Parks Commission do the actual inventory is good risk practice, safety practice, to have all of our parks where public access inventory and make things like we're dealing with the big tire park right now. That's something that if we did an annual inventory, we would know at what point it's slumping off. But some of that staff, which is why I suggested having Parks Commission do that, they can do the legwork.
Yes, excuse me, the wording at the top of page 147, might have been on a different page at 147, is not the wording we want. That saying that everything's closed.
Right.
So that we need to change that language to say that these areas are only open for recreational use.
Right.
All other uses are prohibited.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yep.
Use at your own risk is a good thing to add. So I think that would be my direction at least. And then, I do believe the idea of contacting, maybe we write I don't know, how do we contact David Gomberg and Senator Anderson? We could write a resolution saying this, hurts the very values that, we value Depoe Bay and we ask them to sponsor legislation. I think that is the fix that we need.
And I'm glad you suggested that because in doing my research, I found a sample resolution from the last time recreational immunity was challenged. So I can bring that to the next meeting.
Thank you.
That's great. Are you in favor of having the Parks Commission that's decided for them to do?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, okay. We'll assign various staff members to spread the wealth out among the Parks Commission, so it's not all on anybody's one shoulder, so everybody doesn't lose all his people.
So they're gonna inventory areas where we should post signs like that?
They will help us identify those, yes. So there's a checklist that CIS gave us to say, look at these things, like when you're down the big part, look for sharp edges, that sort of stuff, so. Look at falling, where you need to have signs, so.
Oh, I like that fat tire park that we have.
Big tire.
Big tire, where you sit down and stare into the abyss.
Yes,
Yeah, that needs to be.
yes, we're working on that.
I actually brought a photo of that in case.
That is being removed this week. I can
But
tell you.
the cement is
staying, right? No, the cement, it's all, it's, they can't be separated.
I walked past
Yeah.
it today, I saw it today.
Yeah.
Wouldn't removing the cement destabilize it more?
How did you guys, they said that
just
they.
poured it on the ground.
They just poured it on the ground, it's not like
Doesn't go
anchored,
down.
yeah. But the bench itself is anchored to the cement, they told me you can't.
Are we gonna roll it
But when
off?
that was put in there, that had not slopped off, the ocean took that all
Yeah,
out
that's
that winter.
Yeah, no, I think.
So for this recreational immunity, I just have direction to proceed with, so I'll work on the rest of that, so.
I said there's already a sign up at that park.
There is,
Yeah.
but I've had people contact me, including a geotechnical engineer that's on the planning commission, said that's not enough for protection, and he's probably right, I think if I asked.
What are we gonna do? Are we putting up a rope or?
Well, for right now, we're gonna remove the temptation of anybody to sit there.
Okay.
We'll probably still put the sign, leave the sign there, cause it's a bad edge. Our city engineer's gonna come visit us at some point, cause I have a couple things we need him to go over.
Right, we're scheduled to.
And he's gonna take a look at that one and provide me, we need to know how far, cause it went back pretty far, pretty fast, the bench isn't in there that long, so. I've also reached out to the people who paid to have that bench in there, just to give them a heads up and let them know what's going on.
It's a memorial to the family.
Yes, and I haven't heard back from anyone yet.
But we'll remove it and then we'll keep the bench.
Safeguarded until we know what we're gonna do with it, and we don't know because, if it's the rate of decrease sloughing off is pretty, though we don't wanna put something back there when we have to do it again in a couple of years. And this was not regulated to recreational immunity, but.
That's okay, got it resolved.
All right, but I'm good to go with what I need to do next on that, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, staff reports, project updates. Has everyone had a chance to find out what's going on in the city?
I would like to talk to you guys just for a brief moment about the code enforcement, expanding on kind of what I wrote in there. My challenge is, and I just need to, I guess I just really feel like I need to feel how you are about this. There are a lot of places in the city, including 2 places on Ainsley, where the residents don't have a driveway or much of one. I cannot enforce on this one. There's a lot of cleanup. I don't know if you noticed, there's only the 2 vehicles that, everything else is off that right away. So they've been doing something on that. But I can't have somebody come take those cars because we have this other neighbor who has no driveway. Now, Brady, I think I put in there, yes, so they're working on it, but they're not expecting them to get a driveway. The water meter has to be moved, they have to put in line, right, Brady? And they don't expect, because of how everything is slow, getting anybody to do anything until 2024, which means they would not have a place to park. Which is why my one suggestion was have that one little edge back there where that other vehicle, and to say until you have a 3-month parking waiver pending you getting your driveway. That was just, I don't know what else to do. If the council wishes, I would proceed and they wanna come talk to you. So maybe you wanna hear from them, but they would like to come talk to you because they do have a concern about that. And I am concerned about going after one car on Ainsley because of the fact that there's no driveway there. And we tell them, there's actually 2 now parked on Ainsley. If we enforce this.
We have to enforce it.
But then what do we wanna say as our response to people who wanna come to talk to the council because there's nothing on parking?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, yeah. I have actually very little sympathy, and I don't wanna hear from them. You know, they didn't do diligence, and it's not our problem. If they wanna talk to their neighbors and get a temporary parking space until they get it, that's up to them. But, we cannot be uneven-handed. We have, Rhonda doing all this work and then, playing nice with those other people because they're nice, I can't tolerate that. And the same thing on, it's anybody that has a home is required to have off-street parking. So, whether they did diligence or not, that's not our problem, and I don't see that,
Okay, if the councils concur,
Well, that's just me,
Right.
So where have they been parking?
The people on Cook, right on, most of them have been parking down at the other end, but they've been parking on the right of ways, so. They have how many vehicles? I wanna say 2, right? And there's another vehicle that parks there, but he only parks there because he wants to make sure nobody parks in front of his place, so. But he's not a problem, he'll be okay.
He puts the guy across from Rhonda parks there, so she won't park a vehicle there. He just blocks it.
Yeah.
So he has access to his driveway.
I just wanna make sure that the council is comfortable, because even if we don't want to hear from them, they still have the right to come talk to our public comment. You don't have to respond to them, but they still have the right to have this addressed by coming to the council, so.
So I have a question, I'm unclear, the house in question, that's parked right now on the street, there's no way it's too complicated to build a driveway?
Brady, you wanna cover that?
They're in the process of hiring a contractor, they're just having to wait for the contractor.
And the water meters right in the way, the lines are in the way, the sewage or just the water?
Just the water, and they've already, ordered their contractor and the timing, that's gonna be first, and then road and driveway is gonna do the, lowering of the whole embankment, so they can put the driveway in, so there's like 3 parts to it. But they're scheduled,
So estimated time of completion?
after the first of the year, so so they can maybe lower and do the gravel, they're thinking after, the holidays, so January. And then pavement is only gonna be available when they make asphalt during a dry stretch, so it's really,
And how about the people in Ainsley that are parking on the street?
So Ainsley's what some folks do park, that's at the entry to Ainsley, when you first go in, there's cars there, but they have a driveway area down below, they can park down there, KCS park there. The other folks up above, they have, an area to put off-street parking, this little house roughly, those folks have to park there because there's a curb that was put in, so they just park on the street. They can easily make an access and have off-street parking this time.
Okay. So are they willing to work with the city?
They've talked to me about trying to figure out how they can get it a driveway. Or a parking area, just off.
So
the
at
curb.
least it's.
So those folks are working with it too, and most other folks on Ainsley are just using gas and things like that, so.
Yeah, it's just
Casey
these
sees
two
them come and
condos.
go.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's just the two houses when you first come in on.
Can we put up a no parking sign?
Well, they are, all of them are Ainsley, they're up and down one side and the other.
We're ordering new signs that simply say no parking,
On the street.
on street. Because there seems to be a lot of confusion with the arrows and with people knowing what any time means. We're ordering extra signs because
Yeah.
they think that, well, as long as I'm not parked near the sign, I don't have to, it's not approved to me, so it's a lot of that sign stuff. But I just wanna make sure the council is good, because I will enforce it, because I wanna be consistent, I don't think it would be fair to do one and not everybody else.
So another question, I have two people that across the street from me always park on the street. They have 4 cars and there's 2 on the street. I don't really care, it doesn't bother me, but if we're gonna have this code come, we're gonna have a code come in, I think it should be citywide.
But is Anchor non-parking?
It's a private street.
Right, and that's handled different,
It's
it's
okay,
like through your group,
okay.
right? So if the street is parking allowed, then it doesn't matter how many cars they park there.
I just have a quick question. Winchell, are you allowed to park on?
Winchell, unless the council, you are allowed to park on Winchell. You can't store a car on Winchell, but as long as it moves within 72 hours where the ordinances wrote. But unless the council deems it no parking, like the council did back in the day when we redid Ainsley, they had all of Ainsley no parking. And Winchell got redone, but they never changed anything, and still you can park on Winchell.
There's no
But that's not
parking.
for the council, and usually what happens is neighbors will come to say, hey, can you have a no parking, because it's really congested, it's kind of dangerous, that's what the issue was with Ainsley. And where you pull off of Collins, but if enough neighbors, or if the council decides, they can, the council can tell, Public Works, put up no parking in this certain area, and we'll note that, and it'll be permanent no parking.
Oh, yes, I have. Okay. I have a question about this harbor restoration project. Can we move, I mean, we have awarded the bid, right? Can we proceed that the work window is not until next year, so we have time, right?
I need to update you.
Yeah.
The clock has set.
What, like an executive session or?
No, it's public record, I can certainly tell you about it now. So, our city attorney went to a temporary restraining order hearing today, and the judge granted it.
What?
The judge granted it, we cannot award the contract. But the way this works is that the award is not happening until the parties have signed the contract. John was on vacation, the main guy was on vacation last week when I sent him the agreement, so he didn't get it to the president and didn't get it processed until he came back from vacation. So the contract hasn't been signed, even though you've awarded it twice, the judge said that, no, we're gonna grant it because the contract's not been signed.
I'm sorry, what did they grant?
A temporary restraining order, preventing us from being able to execute the contract.
And what's a temporary mean until it goes through?
There is a show cause hearing next Friday to decide whether there will be a permanent injunction. One of the things that Legacy is asking for is for us to be forced to award the contract to them. Yes. What we have to do now, because our city attorney does not deal with construction contract law, is I have to find us an attorney who does, and I did reach out and spoke to somebody today. There's a status hearing on Monday that we're hoping our new construction contract attorney can attend and deal with, but we have now until next Friday to get whether or not there will be a final ruling to enjoin us from awarding the contract. And we would have to go, if they so ordered, we'd have to go with Legacy. Now, what that would look like, we don't know because their contingency is significantly higher, so this is what I've been dealing with most of the last couple of days.
Wow.
So do we renegotiate the contingency portion of it?
We could, because actually, I'm not sure what the judge would order. I mean,
Because it's all part of the harbor.
it would be part of what they would argue, is that, you know, we have the right to be able to do this because it's the best for the city, you know, to be able to not have to pay $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 extra in contingency, so. Anyway, so that's kind of where we're at on that, unfortunately. So right now, I've spoken with Advance, there's nothing we can do, we can't finalize, we can't do anything. We're basically on hold, except for me talking to our new attorney, whoever that will be, and figuring that out.
But if Friday's the hearing, we don't have an attorney, we should ask for a continuum.
Well, there is, I should have, it's next Friday, it's not this Friday, it's next Friday. So, I've already reached out to a firm that was recommended to us that has an attorney who deals with construction law. And I left them a message because they said, call us after the hearing, because the judge could have just said denied, but the judge didn't. So I left a message, I'm sure I'll hear from them tomorrow about the next step. So I think we'll have one. I just want to get him locked in by Monday so he can attend the status hearing for us, in which case they would determine a date that would work better for everybody to have a show cause hearing. I may get called, I'm sure I will get called, actually probably today, I'm sure I will get called, they could call the mayor to testify.
So does the Harbor Restoration Committee know about this?
The Harbor Restoration Committee does, because I spoke individually to, when they came in, I told Jack and Liz right away, before I told you guys, because they were sitting there and I didn't know if they'd stay, and I didn't wanna drop the bomb on them, but, and Kathy was part of that.
Okay.
What's to stop the other company that we want to award them? What's to stop them from doing the same thing that this Legacy's doing? I don't get
Well,
how.
because they got the contract, so what happens if Legacy, the injunction is granted and they award the contract to Legacy, then I'm sure Advance will do something.
It just
Right?
round and round we go.
Could be. Now, I did speak to him, just so you know, because council recognition and in-water work. Advance spoke to their manufacturer that's going to do the work on the new docks. And we are not in danger of missing our in-water work yet. So. And I told Corey, I said, well, the biggest risk to us is that if, first of all, we could lose Advance, because we have 60 days to contract with them. The price could go up because his supplier said they were locked in for 30 days, so we could have some damages here depending on what that is. Yeah.
But isn't that the whole purpose of putting out a bid? You can award it to whoever you
Ours
choose to award
specifically
it
said it
to.
was going to the lowest bidder.
Right, and that's what they're arguing, but there is provisions that allow the city to make their choice based on that bid, but that doesn't mean, like anything else, somebody won't find a way to argue with it. So, and they're just saying, first they were trying to say we did it without the protest period, but that wasn't true. And they're just saying that we shouldn't have included the contingency as part of the contract, but we did have the capability to do that. The ORS even allows us to do it, so. We didn't do wrong.
Any other questions? Are there any closing public comments? Council comments? Council comments? This evening? No council comments? Okay. Oh, yes.
So, in regards to harbor leases, I understand that the harbor, commission didn't take action on it. I think we need to ask Roy. He just made a lot of contact with Harbor Master Association, it seems like, from last meeting. I wonder if we could find out what other, harbors, especially small harbors, are charging for dock lease space. So we get some comparable figures, because the attorney didn't want to he said it wasn't his job to figure out what it costs. So we need to find some comparable figures for whatever communities are leasing their docks for.
Commissioner, yes, if I may. So, I've been doing the research, but having Roy do that would be probably very helpful. So I have that information, but the Harbor Commission is interested, but they want to do it at the work session with you. They don't want to put something together, they want to do it all together because they said, well, we can come up with a recommendation, but.
Well, no, I think we need facts and figures. And I don't think that.
So they didn't decline to work on it, but they're just saying, well, they were just like, well, this is really, they feel like maybe this is something you guys either do jointly or the council does.
How do we get the facts and figures?
That's what I'm working on.
I know, okay.
Why is that your job?
I'll work with Roy to contact some of his other ones, but I already reached out. I was actually gonna have somebody in the office do that, to reach out to the other harbors, but that's a good idea, and he's already been working on something else, so we can have him make some phone calls down there, don't you think?
And then I'm not so much concerned about the money piece of it as the liability piece of it. So if this insurance company that keeps showing up and telling us we've done everything, have they weighed in on the fact that we have the public using city property with no legal thing in place?
No, I haven't asked them that question, it's one of those, do we open that? Do we open that can of worms, because I don't know what that would be on that. The other part is that, I got our city engineers folks to use their CAD designers to map out the city property, because there's some debate about that. So while there's not, I don't have anything in front of you, I promise you I am working on this, but there are a lot of things that are taking priority, like dealing with the harbor restoration and almost having to go to court today, so. I'm not complaining, that's not a complaint, I'm just saying, this is one of those things for a work session to talk about all the things on my list and what you guys want me to focus on, but there's just a lot going on right now.
And then one last, the overwater square footage that these docks are taking up, take away from what we could use it for otherwise, correct?
Right.
So in other words, where we could rent it out, say we added a new dock down somewhere by the fish plant or whatever, and rented it out, we would be getting mortgage payments for that. Or we used it for crab pot. I'm just saying, it's got more levels than just the income. I'm done now.
Okay. Counselor?
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple of questions for our recorder. One is, did you have a chance to call Dan Cutter and find out how he was able to get the audits done for Walport?
First of all, I was under the impression that he had the same auditor, he did not. I don't know why I told me that he did, but he said how he got it was he just, how did he say it? I just pushed them, but they were already so close, so he didn't give me any insights. In other words, he just said he had everything. I haven't had anything.
So have you heard from our auditor?
I have not. And neither has the mayor, I believe, because she was also reaching out to him.
No answers, not everything. I've emailed and called both.
One other question, how's our small claims action?
I thought when you filed it online that it actually got reserved, but it didn't, so it was mailed out last week. So I haven't received the card back yet. We're allowed to certify, you certified, yes, we did that, and I just haven't received the card back.
And when's your vacation?
Oh, by the way, I'm not taking vacation.
Oh.
No.
Too much to do. So Mom, I'm sending Mom to Colorado without me.
Oh, no, we put her on a bus or?
No, I got her a nice flight, she's good. I just have a lot of credits from canceling my flight, so she's good.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, one more thing. It just seems that we really need to figure out how to get, additional assistance.
We're gonna talk about that on Thursday night.
Thursday, yeah. 5.
Yeah.
I thought that was about the salary schedule.
It's all set.
And I work Thursday night.
So, I have a question.
Assuming that my dog's vet thing is done by then, I'm planning to, so.
Counselors usually would be at
Carry it a city.
at work session on Thursday.
This is Thursday at what?
At
2 nights.
we're done, okay. At 5, 6,
Yeah.
5.
5 o'clock.
Yes.
Whatever.
If we need to,